Alright, here's our second attempt to making Mom's perfect curried mushroom quiche. We did film it last week and it was a disaster. I may or may not have burnt the quiche. This we may trim and served it raw.
And it's raw. Oh well.
Which is sort of the worst of both worlds. I'm coming at you with a fully revised version that I feel pretty good about. Very excited to share with you, so let's get into it. Alright, Mom's quiche recipe is one of those that we used to eat a lot. I believe when Mom was in a little bit of a hiccup because it's a super easy recipe to make and can feed like 4 people. It's incredible and the list of ingredients is very straightforward. First things first, I'm going to cut about half of a pound of mushrooms. You could use any kind of mushrooms you want as long as you get half of a pound of it. For me, I just picked up whatever was at my grocery store. I got baby Bella and I got white button mushrooms. This recipe actually originates from my godmother Joanne, who passed it along to my mom in the 90s, which is a recipe we ate a lot. But the original recipe has gobelch in it, which is crab flavored pollock fish, which is another one of those like super trendy things in the 90s. I think it's popular in quite many cultures, but I always used to fucking hate it, and I would always pick it out of the quiche. And I have to say, I still feel the exact same way about gobelch, and that's why today we're taking that shit out the recipe, and we're going just with the curried mushroom version.
Tell us how you really feel.
That's how I really feel about it. So I'm almost finished cutting the mushrooms, and I'm just gonna preheat a medium-sized pan over high heat. So I got my nice hot pan, mushrooms are sliced up. I'm gonna do a couple swirls of olive oil in here. And for mushrooms, it's pretty important that you go at a pretty high heat. The reason being, you're trying to basically go at searing temperature instead of sweating temperature, because you're trying to have the liquids within the mushroom stay inside instead of just kind of like leaking away and then the mushroom losing its flavor. Alright, so my mushrooms are in with the olive oil in a very hot pan, and I'm not going to touch them and I'm not going to add any salt right now. Salt would draw some moisture out, and flipping them would also make them steam faster. What we're trying to do is not have these mushrooms steam because we want to create a mixture that's as dry as possible once we mix it with the eggs. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we're leaving these mushrooms here, get some color for a couple minutes, and in a couple minutes I'll do like one nice flip and let them stick for another couple minutes. And that's how we're gonna cook these. So our mushrooms are about 90% of the way done, and I'm happy with them. It's released some moisture, but it's drawn back out with the heat and a little bit of time. Next up into this mixture, I'm going to put a couple tablespoons of butter, 2 teaspoons of this fantastic curry powder, a pinch of salt. This is about half of a bunch of parsley. I just roughly picked it, and I'm gonna wilt those parsley leaves with the mushroom mixture. This is only gonna cook all together for a few minutes. You're looking to, like I said, wilt the parsley leaves, melt the butter, and bloom the curry powder. And that's gonna help really flavor your egg mixture for the quiche. Once I have it like this, I'm gonna dunk it in a bowl. Make sure you get all the goodies. We got our mushroom mixture in our bowl, and it's no big deal if it's hot because we're gonna start by adding cold cream to it. So that's gonna bring the temperature down before we add the egg. So I'm doing 2 cups of heavy cream. So this is no light recipe, if you will. My mom on her sheet had this really funny like list of things at the bottom you could replace the cream with, like skim milk or like egg whites and weird shit like that. But I think if you're gonna make a quiche, you're about to indulge in a whole portion of custard for dinner, so I think you just have to be okay with it and use 2 cups of whole cream. So in this whole cream now, we are going to add 4 egg yolks, and then I will do 3 whole eggs. So 3 whole eggs are in here. I'm gonna do 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, and that is a great ratio of salt to custard. Now, I could be using a whisk. If you were to use a whisk, you would froth the cream and the eggs, and you would have this little froth that would sit on top. And this froth typically actually goes nowhere. So once you bake it, you would just have a little bit of baked froth on top of your quiche, and I think that's disgusting. So that's why I'm mixing with a rubber spatula. Just make sure everything is very well incorporated. Scrape down your edges, and you have this beautiful curried creamy egg mixture. Right here I have a lovely, fully baked pie crust. And if you want to learn how to make that, please check out my video on how to do a rough puff. I'll link in the description below. But to be really honest, I've never seen my mom make rough puff ever. She would always buy it, which if you want to start by buying it, do it. But I think this is a great essential recipe to know. I'll link that down below. I have my crust fully baked, like I said. I'm just gonna pour the mixture right in here. And the last thing to go on this before we bake it is a little bit of grated cheese. I'm using a Swiss cheese because I like the flavor of it. But if you were to use any other cheese, you just make sure you use some fatty cheese, such as like a mozzarella, gruyere, or anything like that. A really nice melty cheese to put on top. What that's gonna do, once again, is prevent the egg from getting a crust on top. The fat of the cheese is just gonna melt and create this really bubbly caramelization. So this is gonna go in my preheated oven at 375. Once I put it in my oven, I'm gonna bring the temperature down to 350. Why I'm doing that is because you want the outside of the custard to set a little bit faster so it doesn't make the crust too soggy. And then after it's set, you want it to just really cruise and slowly cook at 350. So I'm gonna cook this for about between 40 minutes to an hour. I'm gonna check it at 25 minutes, do a little quick rotation, and that's gonna be to make sure to prevent we're not getting some sides of the quiche more cooked than the other side. My oven doesn't cook evenly at all, so I just really don't want to have any overcooked bit of eggs. And then once I rotate it, I'll let it go and show you what kind of texture we're looking like towards the end. Here it's been about 56 minutes. We gave it a little rotation and it is finished, fully baked. It's got a little puff around the edges, which is good. And if we give it a jiggle, see this in the center? It's a fully firm jiggle all the way through. If you were to see any little area that were a bit bouncy or a bit too wavy, kind of like Jello, you have to let it go a bit longer. Because this is a custard dish, we need to let it rest for kind of a bit of time before we get to eat it. So I would let it rest for at least half the time that it's been baking for. So 30 minutes of resting, and then we're gonna be good to slice into it. This part is a little optional. My mom used to do that, but actually she used to finish it with a little bit of chopped parsley, and I can't get to chopped parsley, so I'll just finish it with a little bit of picked parsley, and then it's ready to be cut. Ooh, flaky, flaky crust. Look at this. So beautiful. Couldn't be more happy with it. It is so good, so nostalgic. The curry powder with all the warm spices in there just brings so much flavor. I love it. Could not be happier with the flavor and the texture. I really hope you give it a try and let me know if you like it. I put new recipes on here weekly, so subscribe to my channel for more, and I will see you next week.